The howling wind clawed at Beatrice Thompson's face as she peered anxiously through the wagon's canvas flap. The once promising journey to Hachita, New Mexico, now a desperate struggle against nature's wrath. December 1879 had brought an unexpected blizzard to the southwestern territories, transforming the dusty trail into a treacherous white void that threatened to swallow her whole. "Please hold steady," Beatrice whispered, more prayer than command, as her team of exhausted horses strained against the deepening snow. At 22, she'd faced many challenges since leaving St. Louis, but nothing had prepared her for this merciless winter storm. The wagon lurched violently as one wheel caught in a hidden ravine, sending her tumbling against the wooden supply crates that carried her hopes for a new life as a schoolteacher. The horses whinnied in panic as the wagon tilted precariously. Beatrice scrambled toward the driver's seat, but another violent jolt threw her backwards. Her heart pounded frantically as she felt the wagon's balance shift beyond recovery. The world tumbled in a sickening roll of white and wood as the wagon tipped completely, pinning her beneath collapsed canvas and splintering boards. "Help!" she screamed, though her voice seemed swallowed by the storm's ferocity. Sharp pain radiated from her ankle as she struggled to free herself from the tangle of blankets and broken crates. Above her, the wagon's frame groaned ominously, threatening to collapse further under the weight of accumulating snow. Miles away across the snow-covered plains, Nathan Adler pulled his coat tighter and urged his stallion through the blinding whiteness. At 26, he was no stranger to harsh weather, having spent the last 8 years working cattle across the territory. The cowboy had waited too long at Wallace Station before starting the final leg of his journey home to his small ranch outside Hachita. Now he was paying for that mistake as the blizzard intensified. "Just a few more miles, Thunder," he encouraged his faithful horse, leaning forward against the biting wind. That's when he heard a distant cry almost lost in the storm's howl. Nathan reined in, tilting his head to listen. There it came again, unmistakably human and filled with distress. "Hello," he called, turning Thunder toward the sound. Through swirling snow he made out a dark shape ahead, an overturned wagon, half buried in a drift. His heart raced as he spurred his horse forward. Someone was trapped in there, and with temperatures dropping rapidly, they wouldn't survive long. Beatrice had nearly given up hope when she heard the approaching hoofbeats. The wagon frame above her had begun to buckle, threatening to crush her completely. "In here," she cried, her voice hoarse from screaming. "Please hurry." The canvas flap tore away, revealing a snow-crusted figure. Nathan assessed the situation quickly. The wagon's structure was failing, and the young woman inside was pinned by debris. "Don't move," he ordered, his voice steady despite his racing heart. "I'm going to get you out." Working frantically, Nathan cleared away the broken supplies that trapped Beatrice. The wagon groaned above them, threatening imminent collapse. "Can you move your legs?" he asked, reaching for her hands. "My ankle, I think it's sprained," Beatrice gasped. "But yes." "We've got seconds, not minutes," Nathan warned, noting the buckling wood. "When I pull, you push with your good leg." "Ready," Beatrice nodded, gathering her courage. With one powerful motion, Nathan pulled her toward the opening while she propelled herself forward with her uninjured leg. They tumbled backward into the snow just as the wagon frame collapsed with a sickening crunch, burying her possessions beneath splintered wood and canvas. "That was too close," Nathan breathed, helping her sit up. "Are you hurt anywhere else?" Beatrice shook her head, then winced as she tried to move her ankle. "Just this, I think. Thank you, you saved my life." "Nathan Adler," he introduced himself, already assessing their dire situation. The blizzard showed no signs of abating, and nightfall would bring deadly cold. "We need shelter and fast," Beatrice Thompson, she replied through chattering teeth. I was heading to Hachita. I'm to be the new school teacher. Nathan's eyes widened slightly. The school teacher. Town's been waiting on you, but we won't make it there tonight. He glanced around, getting his bearings despite the whiteout conditions. My ranch is closer, about 2 miles east. Can you ride? Before she could answer, Nathan was helping her onto Thunder's back, then gathering what supplies he could salvage from the ruined wagon. Her trunks were crushed, but he managed to retrieve a carpet bag and some blankets. Your horses? Beatrice asked, suddenly remembering her team. No time to find them in this storm, Nathan replied grimly. If they broke free, they might make it to shelter on their own. We need to move now. He mounted behind her, one arm wrapped protectively around her waist as he took the reins. Beatrice found herself pressed against the solid warmth of his chest, a stark contrast to the biting cold surrounding them. Hold on tight, he instructed, urging Thunder forward into the blinding white. Keep talking so I know you're staying awake. As they pushed through the storm, Beatrice told him about leaving St. Louis, about her teaching position and dreams of Western opportunity. Nathan listened, occasionally guiding her back when her words began to slur from the cold. He shared brief details of his own life, 8 years ranching, building something from nothing, the challenges of the territory. By the time the shadowy outline of his ranch house appeared through the snow, Beatrice was barely conscious, her body trembling violently against him. Nathan dismounted quickly, lifted her from the saddle and carried her to the door, kicking it open with his boot. The cabin was cold but mercifully sheltered from the wind. Nathan placed Beatrice on a chair near the fireplace and moved with practiced efficiency, starting a fire with kindling he kept ready. As warmth slowly filled the room, he turned his attention to her injured ankle, gently removing her snow-soaked boot. It's swollen, but I don't think it's broken, he said after careful examination. We need to get you out of these wet clothes before pneumonia sets in. Beatrice's cheeks flushed despite her pallor. I can't possibly. I'll turn my back, Nathan assured her, retrieving a flannel shirt and woolen trousers from a chest. These will be too big, but they're dry. I'll tend to Thunder while you change. When Nathan returned from settling his horse in the small attached stable, he found Beatrice wrapped in a quilt by the fire, her wet clothing spread nearby to dry. His clothes engulfed her small frame, and with her dark hair falling in damp waves around her face, she looked both vulnerable and determined. Thank you, she said softly, for everything. I would have died out there. Nathan nodded, busying himself with preparing a simple meal of coffee and beans with salt pork. Anyone would have done the same. No, Beatrice contradicted with surprising firmness. Not anyone would have heard my calls in that storm. Not anyone would have risked their life to save a stranger. Their eyes met across the small room, a moment of connection that neither expected. Nathan looked away first, uncomfortable with her gratitude. He'd spent too many years alone to know how to respond properly to such sincerity. Storm might last days, he said, changing the subject. Once your ankle heals some, we'll get you to town. Until then, you're welcome here. Beatrice watched as he moved efficiently around the cabin. Despite his rough exterior, there was a gentleness to his movements, a consideration that spoke of character deeper than his taciturn words suggested. I've disrupted your life completely, she observed. Nathan's lips quirked in what might have been the beginning of a smile. Madam, out here, disruption is just another word for Tuesday. He handed her a steaming cup of coffee. Besides, Hachita needs its school teacher. As the blizzard raged outside, they shared the simple meal. Two strangers thrown together by circumstance, neither realizing how completely their lives had just changed course. The first morning after the rescue dawned white and silent, the blizzard having expended its fury overnight. Beatrice woke disoriented, momentarily forgetting where she was until the dull throb in her ankle reminded her of the previous day's events. She was tucked into Nathan's bed, while he had insisted on sleeping on a pallet by the fire. Soft sounds from the main room told her Nathan was already awake. Carefully testing her injured ankle, she grimaced at the pain but found it marginally improved. Using a wooden chair as support, she hobbled into the main room where Nathan was stoking the fire. "You should stay off that foot," he said without turning, somehow sensing her presence. "I'm not one for idle convalescence," Beatrice replied, making her way to the table. "Is there anything I can help with?" Nathan finally looked at her, his expression unreadable beneath his beard. "You can help by not making that ankle worse. Town doctors snowed in same as us." The simplicity of the cabin struck Beatrice in the morning light. Everything served a purpose, no ornamentation, no excess. Yet there was an undeniable comfort to the space, a home rather than merely a shelter. "How long have you lived here?" she asked as Nathan placed a plate of cornbread and bacon before her. "Built it 6 years ago," he replied, sitting across from her with his own breakfast. "Started with just the main room. Added the bedroom and stable later." "All by yourself," Nathan nodded. "Had help raising the main beams, but the rest I managed alone." "It's impressive," Beatrice said sincerely. "I've never met anyone so self-sufficient." A faint color touched Nathan's cheeks above his beard. "Out here, you learn quick or you don't last." As they ate, Beatrice found herself studying her rescuer. In daylight, she could better see the man who had pulled her from certain death. His dark hair was in need of a trim, falling just above broad shoulders. His beard was neatly kept despite its fullness, and his eyes, a clear, striking blue, seemed to notice everything while revealing nothing. "I should check on your horses," Nathan said, rising from the table. "Storm's broken, but there's 4 feet of snow out there. Don't try going outside." Left alone, Beatrice took stock of her situation. Her plans lay in ruins along with her wagon. The school term was to begin after New Year's, giving her just over 2 weeks to establish herself in Hachita. Now she was stranded with minimal possessions and an injured ankle. "This isn't how I imagined starting my new life," she murmured to the empty room. When Nathan returned hours later, his expression confirmed her fears before he spoke. "Found one of your horses. It didn't make it. No sign of the other." Beatrice closed her eyes briefly. "And my things?" "Wagon's completely destroyed. I salvaged what I could." He placed her carpet bag on the table along with a small wooden box. "Found this buried deep in the snow. Seemed important." Beatrice's breath caught as she recognized her mother's jewelry box. "Thank you," she whispered, running her fingers over the carved lid. "This is all I have left of her." Something in Nathan's expression softened momentarily. "I'm sorry about the rest." That evening, as Nathan taught her to play checkers using a handmade board with buttons for pieces, Beatrice found herself laughing for the first time since the accident. Nathan rarely smiled fully, but his eyes crinkled at the corners when amused, and she discovered she enjoyed provoking that reaction. "You've lived alone all this time?" she asked as he claimed 3 of her pieces in succession. "Mostly. Hands come through during calving and roundup. Otherwise, it's just me." "Don't you get lonely?" Nathan considered the question with the same deliberation he gave to his next move on the board. "Got used to my own company. Town's close enough when I need people." "But not too close," Beatrice observed shrewdly. His eyes met hers briefly. "Not too close," he agreed. Over the next few days, as Beatrice's ankle slowly improved and the snow began to settle, they fell into an unexpected rhythm. Nathan taught her to make sourdough bread from his carefully maintained starter, while she read aloud from the few books he owned during the long evenings. She discovered his secret passion for poetry when she found a worn volume of Whitman hidden between practical manuals on animal husbandry. "My mother was a school teacher, too," he admitted when she questioned him about it. "She believed education wasn't just for surviving but for living fully." "She sounds wonderful," Beatrice said softly. Nathan nodded, turning to look out the window. "Lost her and Pa to typhoid when I was 17. Headed west after that." The simple statement contained volumes of unspoken grief. Beatrice reached across the table, briefly touching his hand. "My parents are gone too. Father to the war, mother to consumption 3 years ago." Something shifted between them in that moment of shared understanding, a bridge forming across their differences. By the fourth day, Beatrice insisted on contributing to the household tasks, despite her ankle. Nathan returned from tending his cattle to find her at the wash basin, sleeves rolled up as she scrubbed his shirts. "You don't need to do that," he protested. "I'm not a guest to be waited upon," she replied firmly. "Besides, sitting idle doesn't suit me." Nathan watched her for a moment, then nodded with what might have been respect. "Supper needs cooking if you're determined to help." Working side by side in the small kitchen area, they moved with increasing comfort around each other. When their hands accidentally touched reaching for the same pot, neither pulled away quite as quickly as propriety might demand. That night, after Beatrice had retired to the bedroom, Nathan sat long by the dying fire, troubled by unfamiliar feelings. He'd rescued people before. It was simply what one did in this unforgiving country. But something about Beatrice Thompson stirred emotions he'd carefully buried years ago. It wasn't just her beauty, though she possessed that in abundance with her expressive brown eyes and determined chin. It was her resilience, her willingness to adapt, and the intelligence that shone through every conversation. She represented everything he'd deliberately left behind when choosing this solitary life connection. Challenge, the messy complexity of human relationships. "Foolishness," he muttered to himself, banking the coals for the night. "She'll be gone to town as soon as the trail's clear." The thought brought an unexpected hollowness to his chest. On the morning of the fifth day, Nathan announced he needed to ride into town for supplies and news. "The pass should be clear enough for thunder," he explained, pulling on his heavy coat. "I need to let folks know you're safe. They'll be worried about the new teacher." Beatrice nodded, trying to hide her disappointment at his departure. "Of course. Please tell them I'll arrive as soon as possible." Nathan paused at the door. "You'll be all right here alone." "I'm perfectly capable of managing," she assured him, though the prospect of solitude after their companionable days felt strangely daunting. Once alone, Beatrice found herself wandering the cabin, noting small details she'd missed before. A hand-carved chess piece abandoned mid-creation, a sketch of the mountains pinned discreetly beside the window, wildflowers pressed between the pages of Whitman. Each discovery revealed another layer to the complex man who had saved her life. By the wood stove, she found a small box containing letters tied with twine, correspondence from Nathan's mother, she realized, seeing the signature. Immediately she replaced them, ashamed at her curiosity. These were private treasures, carefully preserved. Hours later, as daylight began to fade, Beatrice heard the welcome sound of hoofbeats approaching. She moved to the window, relief flooding through her at the sight of Nathan returning. But her smile faded as she noticed he wasn't alone. 2 riders accompanied him, one she recognized from Nathan's description as Sheriff Wilson, the other a woman about her own age. Beatrice straightened her borrowed clothes and attempted to smooth her hair, suddenly conscious of her appearance. "Miss Thompson," the woman exclaimed upon entering, rushing forward with outstretched hands. "I'm Clara Wilson, the sheriff's wife. We've been so worried when you didn't arrive. I'm afraid my journey encountered unexpected complications, Beatrice replied, accepting the woman's enthusiastic greeting. Sheriff Wilson removed his hat, revealing a kind face beneath graying hair. Nathan here told us about your ordeal. Providence must have sent him your way. Nathan stood awkwardly by the door, suddenly a stranger in his own home. Brought supplies, he said, gesturing to the saddlebags. And news. Clara wouldn't hear of Beatrice remaining at the ranch any longer. We've prepared a room for you in town, she insisted. You can stay with us until your quarters at the schoolhouse are ready. My ankle is still healing, Beatrice protested weakly, though she knew her argument held little merit. She could walk well enough now with a cane Nathan had fashioned for her. All the more reason to be closer to Dr. Fulton, Clara countered. Besides, the school board is most anxious to meet you. Throughout this exchange, Nathan remained silent, his expression unreadable as he unpacked the supplies. Beatrice found herself wishing for some objection from him, some indication that he might prefer she stay. None came. You've already been more than generous with your hospitality, Mr. Adler, Beatrice finally said, turning to him. I shouldn't impose further. Nathan met her eyes briefly. No imposition, but town's probably best for you now. The words were practical, reasonable, and inexplicably disappointing. We'll come for you tomorrow, Sheriff Wilson decided. Trail's still rough, but my wagon has good springs. Give you time to gather your things. After they departed, an uncomfortable silence filled the cabin. Nathan busied himself with storing supplies while Beatrice sat at the table, emotions warring within her. You'll like Hachita, Nathan said eventually, his back to her as he arranged coffee and flour on a shelf. Good people there. Yes, they seem very kind, she replied, studying her hands. I appreciate you arranging everything. Just mentioned you were here. They did the rest. Another silence stretched between them, filled with unspoken words. Beatrice found herself wishing irrationally that the snow would return, forcing them to remain in this isolated cocoon where something unnamed but precious had begun to grow. I should thank you properly, she said finally. For saving my life, for sharing your home, no need for thanks, Nathan interrupted, finally turning to face her. Anyone would have done the same. We both know that's not true, Beatrice replied softly. That evening, their last together carried a bittersweet quality. They shared a meal that felt like a ceremony, each familiar movement now shadowed by impending separation. When Nathan taught her to play chess with his hand-carved set, their fingers lingered longer than necessary during the instruction. Will you visit town? Beatrice asked as they sat before the fire afterward. Nathan stared into the flames. Sometimes, for supplies. The school will need repairs, I'm sure, she continued, grasping for connections, future points of contact. Perhaps you could advise me. A faint smile touched his lips. Town has carpenters. None who saved my life, Beatrice replied, bolder than she intended. Nathan's eyes lifted to hers, something unnamed flickering in their blue depths. For a breathless moment, Beatrice thought he might reach for her hand, might acknowledge the current that had been building between them. Instead, he stood abruptly. Dawn comes early, he said. Best get some rest before your journey. That night, Beatrice lay awake in Nathan's bed, listening to the creaking of the cabin and the occasional shifting of the man sleeping by the fire. Tomorrow, she would begin her intended life in Hachita, fulfilling the purpose that had brought her west. It was what she wanted, what she had planned for months. Why, then, did it suddenly feel like she was leaving something essential behind? Morning arrived with brutal swiftness. Nathan was already outside tending to chores when Beatrice emerged from the bedroom, her few possessions packed in the carpet bag. She moved through the cabin, touching things one last time: the rough-hewn table where they'd shared meals, the checkerboard with its mismatched pieces, the bookshelf with its unexpected poetry. When Nathan returned, he carried something wrapped in oilcloth. "Made this for you," he said gruffly, holding it out. "For walking in town." Unwrapping it, Beatrice found a beautifully carved walking stick, polished smooth with a handle that fit her hand perfectly. Intricate designs spiraled down its length, wildflowers and prairie grasses etched with remarkable detail. "It's beautiful," she whispered, running her fingers over the craftsmanship. "When did you make this?" "Evenings," he replied with a shrug. "Needed something to do with my hands." The gift spoke volumes that Nathan himself couldn't express. Beatrice blinked back unexpected tears. "I'll treasure it." The sound of approaching wheels announced the sheriff's arrival. Nathan carried her bag outside, then hesitated before helping her down the steps. "If you need anything," he said awkwardly, "town knows where to find me." Beatrice nodded, suddenly unable to find adequate words. How did one thank a man not just for saving her life, but for showing her a kind of peace she hadn't known existed? "Mr. Adler," she began formally, then softened. "Nathan." "Miss Thompson," Clara called cheerfully from the wagon. "Ready for your new beginning." The moment shattered. Nathan stepped back, touching his hat briefly. "Good luck with your teaching, Miss Thompson." As the wagon pulled away, Beatrice turned to watch Nathan's figure grow smaller against the backdrop of his ranch. He stood unmoving until they rounded the bend in the trail and disappeared from view. Hachita welcomed Beatrice Thompson with open arms and overwhelming attention. After weeks of anticipation, the arrival of their new schoolteacher, complete with dramatic rescue story, gave the small community something to celebrate amid the harsh winter. The Wilsons' home on the edge of town became Beatrice's temporary residence, comfortable and filled with the sheriff's 5 boisterous children. Clara proved to be a fountain of information about town dynamics, happily sharing gossip and advice in equal measure. "Single school teachers don't usually last," she confided during Beatrice's first evening. "Either they marry within a year or return east. The isolation gets to most." "I'm not afraid of isolation," Beatrice replied, thinking of the peaceful days at Nathan's ranch. Clara's eyes twinkled knowingly. "So I hear. Nathan Adler's place is about as isolated as one gets around here." Beatrice felt heat rise to her cheeks. "Mr. Adler was a perfect gentleman." "Never doubted it," Clara said. "Nathan's one of the good ones, keeps to himself mostly but always first to help when there's trouble." She hesitated. "Lost someone, I think, before coming here. Never speaks of it, but there's a sadness in him." The observation stayed with Beatrice as she settled into Hachita life. The one-room schoolhouse proved smaller than she expected but solidly built, with a modest attached living quarters that would become her home once properly prepared. The school board, consisting of the town's doctor, banker, and general store owner, expressed confidence in her credentials and relief at her survival. "Thought we'd lost you in that blizzard," Dr. Fulton admitted while examining her ankle. "Lucky thing Adler found you. Man has an uncanny sense in storms." Each mention of Nathan brought a complicated flutter to Beatrice's chest. She found herself watching the main street from the Wilsons' window, irrationally hoping to glimpse his tall figure among the townspeople. Christmas approached, bringing festive preparations to Hachita. Despite her newcomer status, Beatrice was immediately included in all celebrations. She helped decorate the small church, attended quilting circles with town women, and prepared lessons for the 26 students who would become her responsibility after New Year's. Yet beneath her active participation lay a strange restlessness. Hachita offered everything she'd traveled west to find: purpose, community, independence, but something essential seemed missing. "Nathan Adler's in town," Sheriff Wilson announced casually over breakfast a week before Christmas. "Saw him at Henderson's store buying supplies." Beatrice nearly knocked over her coffee cup. "Is he staying for the Christmas social?" The sheriff exchanged a knowing glance with his wife. "Doubt it. Never has before." Throughout the morning, Beatrice found reasons to visit shops along the main street, her heart racing foolishly at every tall, broad-shouldered figure. When she finally glimpsed Nathan outside the livery stable, she froze, suddenly uncertain. He was loading supplies onto a pack horse, his movements efficient and familiar. He looked different here, more guarded, less at ease than he'd been in his own space. When he turned and saw her watching, surprise flashed across his features before he touched his hat in greeting. "Miss Thompson," he said as she approached, leaning on the walking stick he'd carved. "Ankles improving, I see." "Thanks to your excellent care," she replied, searching his face for some sign of the connection they'd shared. "And this beautiful cane helps tremendously." Nathan nodded, adjusting a strap on his horse's harness. "Settling in all right. Everyone has been very welcoming," Beatrice said. "The schoolhouse needs some work before term starts, though." "What kind of work?" "Some shelving for books, repairs to a few desks, nothing urgent. I could take a look," Nathan offered, then seemed surprised by his own words. "If you'd like." "I would," Beatrice replied quickly. "Very much." They walked together to the schoolhouse at the edge of town, acutely aware of curious glances from townspeople. Inside the simple building, Beatrice showed him the repairs needed, conscious of how his presence seemed to fill the small space. Nathan assessed each problem with professional attention, but Beatrice caught him watching her when he thought she wouldn't notice. Something of their earlier ease gradually returned as they discussed practical solutions. "The town's Christmas social is tomorrow evening," Beatrice said as they finished, gathering her courage. "Will you attend?" Nathan hesitated, his hand resting on a damaged desk. "Not usually my kind of gathering." "I would be pleased if you came," she persisted softly. "As my guest." His eyes met hers, searching for something. "You've made friends here already. Don't need the company of a ranch hand." "I'm asking for your company specifically, Nathan," Beatrice replied with unexpected boldness. "Not as a last resort." A long moment passed between them. Finally, Nathan nodded once. "Might stop by." It wasn't a promise, but it kindled hope nonetheless. The Christmas social transformed Hachita's small church into a wonderland of greenery and candlelight. Beatrice wore her best remaining dress, a deep blue wool thankfully salvaged from her carpetbag with a borrowed shawl from Clara. As townspeople gathered, bringing food and good cheer, she found herself watching the door with growing disappointment. "He'll come," Clara whispered, noticing her distraction. "Nathan Adler always keeps his word." The evening progressed with music from a fiddle and piano, children performing recitations, and tables groaning with holiday treats. Beatrice participated with genuine enjoyment, yet found herself increasingly certain that Nathan had decided against attending. She was helping serve punch when a stir near the entrance caught her attention. Nathan stood awkwardly in the doorway, clean-shaven and wearing what was clearly his best shirt, looking both handsome and profoundly uncomfortable. Their eyes met across the crowded room. For a heartbeat, Beatrice thought he might turn and leave. Instead, he squared his shoulders and made his way toward her, nodding politely to those who greeted him in passing. "You came," she said softly when he reached her. "Said I might," he replied, the corner of his mouth lifting slightly. Something in the church's warm light softened Nathan's habitual reserve. He accepted punch from her hands, their fingers brushing briefly in the exchange. When music began again, Beatrice found herself holding her breath, hoping. "Don't suppose you'd care to dance," Nathan said finally, the words somewhere between question and statement. "I would love to," she replied, placing her cup aside. "Though I should warn you about my ankle." "I'll be careful," he promised, offering his arm. They moved together with surprising harmony, Nathan guiding her gently to accommodate her healing injury. His hand at her waist was respectful yet warm through the fabric of her dress. Beatrice found herself wondering what it would feel like to step closer, to rest her head against his chest as she had during their desperate ride through the blizzard. "Everyone's watching us," Nathan murmured, his breath stirring her hair. "Let them," Beatrice replied with uncharacteristic unconcern for propriety. "I'm enjoying myself too much to care." The surprise in his eyes gave way to something warmer. "Never thought I'd see you again after you left." The simple admission held volumes. "I've thought about you every day," Beatrice confessed. Before Nathan could respond, the music ended, forcing them to step apart. Throughout the remainder of the evening, they found moments to talk amid the celebration's brief, meaningful exchanges that rebuilt the connection that distance had begun to fray. As the gathering concluded, Nathan offered to walk Beatrice back to the Wilsons' home. The night air was crisp with winter cold, stars brilliant above them as they moved slowly down the empty street. "When do your students arrive?" Nathan asked, matching his pace to hers. "January 3rd, Beatrice replied. "I'm equal parts excited and terrified." "You'll do fine," he said with unexpected certainty. "Got a way about you that makes people want to learn." She glanced at him, surprised. "What makes you say that?" "Taught me more in 5 days than I've learned in years," Nathan admitted. "About poetry, bread making, conversation." The compliment warmed her more than any fire could have. They reached the Wilsons' gate too quickly, pausing in the shadows beyond the porch light's reach. "I'll come by the schoolhouse tomorrow," Nathan said. "Start on those repairs." "Thank you," Beatrice replied, reluctant to end their time together. "Nathan." He waited, his expression hidden in darkness. "I miss our evenings by the fire," she said finally, gathering her courage. "The quiet conversations." Nathan's hand found hers in the darkness, his calloused fingers entwining with hers. "Me too," he admitted roughly. "Cabin feels empty now." For one breathless moment, Beatrice thought he might kiss her. Instead, Nathan squeezed her hand gently before releasing it. "Good night, Miss Thompson," he said, stepping back. "Beatrice," she corrected softly. "Please call me Beatrice." "Good night, Beatrice," he amended, a smile in his voice. "Sleep well." She watched him walk away, her hand still tingling from his touch, certain now of what her heart had been trying to tell her since the moment he pulled her from the collapsed wagon. The days before Christmas passed in a flurry of anticipation. True to his word, Nathan arrived at the schoolhouse each morning to work on repairs, bringing tools and lumber from his ranch. Beatrice spent the time organizing books and preparing lessons, keenly aware of his presence as he built shelves and mended desks with quiet efficiency. Their conversations flowed more easily now, spanning topics from childhood memories to favorite books. Nathan revealed more of himself in these casual exchanges than he had during their enforced isolation, his dreams for his ranch, his love of wild places, his voracious reading during lonely winter evenings. "Never told anyone about the poetry," he admitted, as he installed a bracket for a map. "Men out here don't generally admit to such things." "Their loss," Beatrice replied, handing him a nail. "There's no shame in appreciating beauty." On Christmas Eve, Nathan arrived with an unexpected gift, a small bookshelf for her living quarters, crafted from polished pine with intricate carving along the edges. "Thought you'd need somewhere for your books," he explained, suddenly self-conscious as she ran her fingers over the detailed work. "It's perfect," Beatrice whispered, blinking back tears at the thoughtfulness. "I have something for you too." She presented him with a hand-knitted scarf in deep blue yarn, worked on secretly during evenings at the Wilsons'. "It gets so cold riding back to your ranch," she explained. "I wanted you to have something warm." Nathan accepted it with reverence, running the soft wool between his fingers. "No one's made me anything in a long time," he said quietly. Something changed between them that day, a barrier falling away, leaving open possibility in its place. When Nathan left that evening, his goodbye held promise rather than finality. Christmas Day brought feasting at the Wilsons', with Nathan invited to join them at Beatrice's request. Watching him interact with the children, accepting their boisterous affection with bemused tolerance, Beatrice felt her heart expand with certainty. "Quite a change in Nathan," Sheriff Wilson commented as they watched him demonstrate a rope trick in the yard afterward. "Haven't seen him this engaged with folks since he arrived here." "He's a remarkable man," Beatrice replied, unable to keep the affection from her voice. The sheriff nodded thoughtfully. "Seems you might be a remarkable woman to draw him out this way." As winter deepened, Beatrice moved into her quarters at the schoolhouse, finally achieving the independence she journeyed west to find. The small rooms became a home with Nathan's bookshelf, holding her precious volumes, walls adorned with pressed wildflowers he brought from distant meadows, her mother's jewelry box displayed on the mantel. The school term began with all the challenges and rewards Beatrice had anticipated. Her students ranged from 6-year-olds to teenagers preparing for adult responsibilities, some riding miles on horseback each day to attend. She adapted quickly, discovering a natural talent for managing the diverse needs of a one-room schoolhouse. Nathan continued visiting town regularly, no longer the reclusive rancher known only by reputation. He attended Sunday services, joined occasional community gatherings, and invariably found reasons to stop by the schoolhouse after classes concluded. These visits became precious rituals. Sometimes they simply shared tea while discussing books or town news. Other times Nathan helped with school maintenance or split firewood for her stove. Occasionally he brought small treasures, a uniquely shaped stone, early spring blossoms, once a hawk feather found on his land. "The children ask about you when you don't come," Beatrice told him one February evening as they sat by her fire. "Especially the younger boys. You've become something of a hero to them." Nathan looked genuinely surprised. "Can't imagine why." "The dramatic rescue in the blizzard," she reminded him with a smile. "I may have shared the story. Embellished it, more likely," he teased, more relaxed now in her presence than he'd ever been. "Perhaps a little," Beatrice admitted, "though the truth needs no embellishment to be remarkable." Their eyes met across the small space, the memory of that desperate day hanging between them. Nathan reached across, taking her hand in his. "Never told you how scared I was," he confessed, his voice low. "When I saw that wagon starting to collapse with you inside." Beatrice tightened her fingers around his. "You didn't show fear, you were all confident competence." "Outside, maybe," he replied. "Inside was pure terror." The admission touched her deeply. She moved from her chair to sit beside him on the small sofa, their shoulders touching. "Why?" Nathan stared at their joined hands. "Couldn't bear the thought of not getting you out in time, even though I didn't know you yet." "And now?" Beatrice asked softly, her heart pounding. His eyes lifted to hers, vulnerability clear in their blue depths. "Now I can't bear the thought of a life without you in it." The words hung in the air between them, momentous and fragile. Beatrice reached up to touch his cheek, feeling the roughness of evening stubble beneath her fingers. "Then we find ourselves in agreement, Mr. Adler," she whispered. When Nathan finally kissed her, It felt both inevitable and miraculous gentle at first, then deepening as she responded. His arms encircled her with protective tenderness, drawing her against his solid warmth. Beatrice felt as though something lost had finally been found, a piece of herself returned that she hadn't known was missing. "I've wanted to do that since Christmas," Nathan admitted when they finally drew apart, his forehead resting against hers. "Only Christmas," Beatrice teased breathlessly. "I've wanted it since you taught me to make sourdough bread." His laugh, rare and wonderful, filled the small room. "Should have known. You had flour on your nose." They sat together by the fire until propriety demanded Nathan's departure, talking of everything and nothing, their future now a shared possibility rather than separate paths. As spring transformed the New Mexico landscape, Nathan and Beatrice's courtship became the worst-kept secret in Hatchita. They maintained proper appearances, always meeting in public places, or with the Wilsons as chaperones, but their mutual devotion was evident to anyone who saw them together. "About time Nathan Adler found someone," Clara declared approvingly. That man was becoming far too comfortable with solitude. The school year progressed successfully, with Beatrice earning respect from parents and affection from students. Nathan expanded his cattle operation, building corrals closer to town that allowed more frequent visits. On Sundays after church, they often rode together, exploring the breathtaking countryside as Nathan shared his intimate knowledge of the land. During one such ride in late April, Nathan guided her to a high mesa overlooking the valley, where wildflowers carpeted the ground in brilliant color. "Found this place my first year here," he said as they dismounted. "Come every spring to see the flowers." Beatrice walked among the blooms, delighted by their abundance. "It's magical." Nathan watched her with undisguised adoration. "Wanted to share it with you, this place. It's special to me." She turned to find him looking uncharacteristically nervous. "What is it?" "Been practicing words," he admitted, running a hand through his hair. "Don't seem adequate now that I'm here." Understanding dawned as Nathan reached for her hands, holding them between his own. "Beatrice Thompson," he began, his voice steady despite the emotion in his eyes. "That blizzard changed my life in ways I never imagined possible. Found more than a woman in need of rescue, found the person who made me want to stop hiding from life." Tears blurred Beatrice's vision as Nathan continued. "I love you," he said simply. "Want to build a life with you if you'll have me. Not asking you to give up teaching or independence, we'll find a way to have both." "Nathan," she whispered, unable to say more past the lump in her throat. He reached into his pocket, producing a ring of delicate gold with a small pearl. "Belonged to my mother," he explained. "Been carrying it for weeks, waiting for courage." Beatrice's tears flowed freely now. "Yes," she managed. "Yes, I'll marry you." The ring slid onto her finger as Nathan pulled her into an embrace that felt like coming home. Above them, hawks circled in the endless blue sky, witnesses to a love born in desperate circumstances and grown strong through winter into spring's promise. Their wedding in early June transformed Hatchita's small church once again, this time with summer flowers and community celebration. The entire town attended Nathan's ranch hands, Beatrice's students and their families. Even travelers passing through joined the festivities. Sheriff Wilson gave Beatrice away in a simple ceremony that reflected the couple's unadorned sincerity. Nathan, standing tall in a new suit, watched his bride approach with wonder in his eyes. Beatrice carried wildflowers from their special mesa, her happiness illuminating her face as she joined the man who had saved more than just her life. "Never seen two people more meant for each other," Dr. Fulton commented during the reception. "Strange how fate works a blizzard of all things bringing them together." The celebration continued well into evening, with music and dancing under lantern light. When Nathan and Beatrice finally departed for their honeymoon journey to Santa Fe, the town showered them with rice and good wishes. "Ready for our next adventure?" Nathan asked as he helped his wife into their wagon. Beatrice smiled up at him, still amazed by the path that had led them here. "As long as we're together," she replied, "I'm ready for anything." Summer passed in blissful adjustment as they balanced two lives becoming one. Nathan expanded his ranch house, adding a proper kitchen and second bedroom while Beatrice prepared for the new school year. They decided she would continue teaching while living at the ranch, riding to town together each morning when weather permitted. "Best of both worlds," Beatrice declared contentedly as they sat on their porch watching a spectacular sunset, though the ride might become challenging come winter. Nathan's arm tightened around her shoulders. "We'll manage. Got experience with winter challenges after all." The memory of their first meeting, once frightening, had transformed into the foundation of their shared story, a testament to courage, chance, and the unexpected paths that lead to happiness. When snow fell again that December, almost exactly 1 year after their fateful meeting, Beatrice stood at their cabin window watching the familiar transformation of the landscape. Nathan's arms encircled her from behind, his hands resting gently on the slight swell of her abdomen. "Strange to think," he murmured against her hair, "if not for last year's storm, we might never have found each other." Beatrice turned in his embrace, meeting the blue eyes that still made her heart race. "Perhaps some forces are powerful enough to create their own destiny," she suggested. "Like blizzards and love." Nathan's smile, no longer rare but always precious, warmed her more thoroughly than the crackling fire. Outside, snow continued falling, no longer a threat but a reminder of how thoroughly life could change in a single desperate moment when a wagon tipped in a blizzard, and a cowboy arrived just in time. As years passed, their love story became legend in Hatchita, the schoolteacher trapped in a blizzard, the reclusive rancher who saved her life, and the enduring partnership that flourished from that dramatic beginning. Nathan and Beatrice Adler raised 3 children in the expanded ranch house, 2 sons, and a daughter who inherited their father's affinity for the land and their mother's passion for learning. The Adler Ranch prospered under Nathan's careful stewardship, eventually becoming one of the most successful operations in the territory. Beatrice continued teaching for many years, eventually establishing a proper school building in town through tireless fundraising efforts. Together, they embodied the spirit of the West: resilience, adaptation, and the strength found in partnership. On winter evenings, their children never tired of hearing the story of the blizzard rescue, each telling embellished with new details, yet always circling back to the essential truth that sometimes the most unexpected circumstances lead to the greatest blessings. "Your father wasn't looking for love when he rode into that storm," Beatrice would tell them, her eyes meeting Nathan's across the room. "And I certainly wasn't expecting to find it while trapped beneath a collapsed wagon. Yet there it was, waiting for us both." "Best mistake I ever made," Nathan would add, riding out in that blizzard. And as their family grew to include grandchildren, the story continued, a testament to courage, timing, and the unpredictable journey of 2 hearts finding their way home through the storm.